You're not ready for this conversation because what happened on NXT February 10th, 2026 wasn't just another episode. It was a takeover, a hijacking, a hostile change of power that has fans split straight down the middle. Some of you are celebrating, some of you are furious, and some of you still don't understand what just happened. Joe Hendry is officially the face of NXT, and whether you like it or not, the era has begun. Before we go any further, I want you to do something right now. Don't skip this. Go to the comments and answer this with one word. Save or ruin? Is Joe Hendry going to save NXT or ruin it? Because by the end of this video, you might change your mind. The show opens and you can feel it instantly. This isn't normal energy. The crowd isn't just loud, they're electric. There's tension in the air. Joe Hendry walks out as NXT champion, and for a split second, everything feels larger than life. This isn't a developmental champion. This isn't a placeholder. This is a statement. But here's where it gets interesting. He barely has time to breathe before chaos erupts. The Vanity Project storms the scene. No warning, no buildup, just pure aggression. Brad Baylor, Ricky Smokes, an ambush that wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. This wasn't about hurting Hendry. This was about disrespecting him, about saying, you may have the title, but you don't run this place. And the question we have to ask is simple. Was that fear or was that confidence? Drop your answer right now. Fear or confidence? Because teams don't attack champions like that unless they feel threatened or unless they think he's weak. Joe Hendry, though, he didn't crumble. He didn't retreat. He stood tall in the middle of the storm. That right there is what separates a champion from a guy holding a belt. But the real test came later. Jackson Drake. Let's talk about him for a second. The Evolve champion. A wrecking machine, the kind of competitor who doesn't care about moments or music or charisma. He cares about impact. And when he stepped into that ring with Hendry for Hendry's first defense, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't clean. It wasn't comfortable. It was violent. Drake targeted everything, the back, the neck, the rhythm. He tried to dismantle the aura around Hendry piece by piece. And there were moments, real moments, where you could feel doubt creeping in. You could see it in the crowd. You could feel it through the screen. Was this reign about to end before it even began? Be honest, when Drake hit that near fall, did you think it was over? Yes or no? That's what makes this special, because Hendry didn't just survive, he endured. He absorbed the punishment and delivered the standing ovation at exactly the right moment. Not too early, not too late, perfect timing. 1, 2, 3, first defense successful. But here's where everything flips, because the match ends and the celebration never comes. Ricky Saints hits the ring, not to congratulate, not to challenge respectfully, to attack. And not a quick, cheap shot either. This was calculated rage. Saints unloaded like a man who believes something was stolen from him, like he sees Hendry not as champion, but as an imposter. And now we have a problem, because if Hendry is the hero of this era, Ricky Saints just positioned himself as the villain we didn't know we needed. So here's a serious question for you. Is Ricky Saints the biggest threat to this championship right now? Or is it still someone we haven't seen step up yet? Comment Saints or other. This is where things get layered, because this episode wasn't just about Hendry, it was about reshaping the battlefield around him. Jada Parker and Blake Monroe didn't just wrestle, they tore into each other so hard the match couldn't even finish properly. Double countout, neither willing to quit, neither willing to give the other the satisfaction. That's not indecision, that's escalation. Who do you think wins if they run it back? Parker or Monroe? Type the name. No explanations, just the name. And then there's the tag division. Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes took on Hank Walker and Tank Ledger, and this wasn't strength versus strength. This was brains versus brawn. Distraction, precision, strategy. The kind of win that sends a message, we don't need to overpower you, we just need to outthink you. And when you connect that to the earlier attack on Hendry, you start seeing a pattern. The Vanity Project isn't just stirring chaos, they're positioning themselves everywhere. Could we be looking at the next dominant faction in NXT? Yes or no? But we're not done, because Sol Ruca just changed the women's division in one night. She didn't sneak her way into contention, she earned it. In a high-stakes tag match alongside Zarya, she overcame Ren Sinclair and Kendall Gray, and by the end of it, she wasn't just celebrating a win, she was staring at destiny. #1 contender. That means JC Jane now has a storm coming her way. And Sol Ruca isn't just athletic, she's explosive, unpredictable, the kind of challenger that can flip a division upside down in one moment. So let me ask you something bold. Does Sol Ruca take the title, or does JC shut the hype down? Comment new champ or JC retains. Now, zoom out for a second. Look at the full picture of what February 10th really did. A champion under attack from multiple sides, a first defense that proved resilience, a new rivalry born out of pure hostility, a women's contender rising fast, a tag division quietly reorganizing itself. This wasn't random. This was strategic. This was NXT saying, we're not waiting anymore. And the biggest piece of that puzzle is Joe Hendry. Because whether you love his charisma or roll your eyes at the theatrics, you cannot deny this. He commands attention. He walks into a room and the temperature changes. And that's something NXT has been craving. Presence. But presence alone doesn't sustain an era. Conflict does. And now he has it. Ricky Saints doesn't just want a match, he wants to expose him. Jackson Drake already tested him physically. The Vanity Project wants control of the spotlight, and that's not even counting future callouts that could happen at any moment. So here's the question that might divide this entire comment section. Is Joe Hendry ready for a long reign, or was that first defense the peak? Long reign or short run? Be honest, don't sit on the fence, because this is where Ring Rumble viewers separate themselves from casual fans. We don't just watch, we analyze, we predict, we call the shifts before they happen. And here's something that might make some of you mad. If Joe Hendry survives this Ricky Saints feud, if he turns back the Vanity Project, if he proves that the Drake match wasn't luck, we might be witnessing the most defining NXT title run in years. Years. But if he slips, if Saints catches him at the right moment, this era could end as fast as it started. That's the pressure. That's the beauty. That's why February 10th wasn't just a highlight reel. It was a declaration. The Joe Hendry era has officially begun. The question is how long it lasts. Before you leave, I want one final prediction from you. No essays, no debates, just one word. Dominate or collapse? Which direction is this era heading? And if you felt the energy shift on this episode, if you felt that spark that NXT has been building towards, hit that like button, share this with another wrestling fan who needs to hear it, and make sure you're subscribed to Ring Rumble. Because if this is how the era starts, you already know what's coming next. And trust me, we'll be right here when it explodes. Because if this is how the era starts, you already know what's coming next. And trust me, we'll be right here when it explodes. Now let's go deeper, because what most people are missing about February 10th is not just what happened, but what it means. Joe Hendry didn't just walk into NXT and win a championship. He walked into a locker room full of hungry, frustrated, overlooked talent and immediately stood at the top of the mountain. Think about that. How do you think that makes the rest of that roster feel? Inspired or resentful? Type inspired or resentful in the comments, because championships don't just create leaders, they create enemies. And if you were watching closely during that main event, you noticed something subtle. After Hendry retained against Jackson Drake, there wasn't relief on his face, there was awareness. He knows this isn't going to be easy. He knows every match now has extra weight. Every promo has to land. Every defense has to silence doubt. And doubt is loud right now. There are fans saying Hendry's charisma is carrying him. There are fans saying he's not an NXT original enough. There are fans saying this reign feels manufactured. Let's address that. Does it matter where a champion comes from, or does it only matter how they perform once they're here? Be honest. Origin or performance? Which matters more? Because Jackson Drake didn't care about Hendry's entrance music, he cared about breaking him down, and for a moment he almost did. That's what makes this reign fragile. Hendry isn't steamrolling people, he's surviving wars, and sometimes surviving is more compelling than dominance. But survival only works for so long. Eventually, a champion has to impose himself. So here's a prediction scenario for you. Imagine Ricky Saints gets his title shot in the next few weeks. The tension builds, the promos get personal. Maybe Saints digs into Hendry's past. Maybe he mocks the era before it even solidifies. Maybe he says this whole movement is hype with no substance. And then the bell rings. If Saints dominates early, does the crowd turn? Be honest, if Hendry struggles too much, does doubt creep in? That's the razor's edge this reign sits on, because this isn't dominance yet, it's tension. And tension either explodes into greatness or collapses under pressure. Let's shift for a second and talk about the